Hi, I'm Mike Papantonio, and this is America's Lawyer. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is facing huge backlash over the Southwest Airlines problem that stranded thousands of passengers during the holidays. We'll explain what happened and how he let it happen. More Twitter files have been released with new information showing how the U.S. government used the platform to spread total propaganda, not dressed up propaganda, total propaganda about other countries and the United States. And a Scientology leader has disappeared to avoid being served with a child trafficking lawsuit. We'll bring you all the details. All that and more. It's coming up. Don't go anywhere. America's Lawyer starts right now. Thousands of Southwest Airlines flights were canceled in the last week, stranding hundreds of thousands of passengers across the country. And the only thing our transportation secretary did was send an angry letter to the airline. Ring of Fire's Farron joins me to talk about what's happened. He needs a hell of a lot more than an angry letter to the airline, doesn't he? You know what bothers me about this is the week before all this catastrophe started, he's on the air saying, you know, DOT, we have it under control. Travel, there's not going to be any impediments this year. Everything's good. But what we've learned now is time and time again, Mayor Pete was told, take a look at the airlines. They're getting ready to crumble where it comes to heavy traffic. Go ahead.
You know, this is a really interesting story here because at first I talked about this last week and I said, listen, this guy's not to blame. Obviously, you know, as the transportation secretary, he oversees it, but he didn't do this. But when you look into this and you look at what Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders did all the way back in, I think, April, they told him, listen, we've got major problems with these airlines. We've got to do something about it. But then 4th of July weekend comes and goes, thousands of people stranded, just like over the holiday, nothing happens. Thanksgiving, same thing happened. A month later, Christmas and New Year's holiday, same thing happened. So Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna warned about it for almost a year, telling him you have to do it and laying out what he needed to do.
They gave him the details.
Yes.
Okay, Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders said, here, you don't seem to understand what the hell you're doing in the Department of Transportation, so let us help you. So they said the problem you got with these airlines is they've taken all of this money from the government, remember during the COVID issue, billions of dollars, and that rather than putting it into their infrastructure, rather than taking their computer system that was way, way outdated, especially Southwest Airlines, way outdated, rather than making improvements, they paid themselves bonuses. They paid themselves dividends. They bought back their own stock. And so this guy, look, Democrats who want to support Mayor Pete as if he's really, really a presidential hopeful, come on. I mean, this guy has no chance in a presidential run. But the guys, people that want to support him say, look, he didn't know. If I hear he didn't know one more time, I will scream. He clearly knew the details of it. The infrastructure failure, the software failure. They didn't even buy new software. All the other airlines were buying new software because they said, we're worried about this. He's told specifically this airline didn't do something about it.
Well, and you also have the airline unions, the pilots groups, the flight attendants groups that have been warning Southwest itself for years saying, your system is so outdated, you can't even keep track of us. You don't know where we are when you need us. And they warned them again, this is going to cause problems. It's going to cause delays. You don't have a proper system to reach out to us and get us in there. You don't even have a system like the other airlines do in place for when this flight is canceled, how to reroute it. You've done no planning at all for your airline.
Yeah, it's even worse than that. When you take it down to the very basics, you had consumers that paid their fare. They paid exactly what they're asked to pay. Flight is canceled, and they can't even get a refund. This has been going on for years with Southwest. And that's what Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders was talking to him about. Look, here's what bothers me about this, okay? Why is it that Democrats and Republicans are always looking to create a hero where there is no hero? That's what they're doing with this guy. This guy is a mayor. That's it. He has reached his max as far as political potential. He's a damn mayor. But nevertheless, you have Democrats out there, oh man, he's a great presidential hopeful. Just like we saw with Avenatti, right? Yeah. We saw with Avenatti, we see it time and time again. We see it with the Republicans and we see Democrats.
Well, he was mayor of a city with 100,000 people. So he goes from overseeing 100,000 people to the entire transportation infrastructure of the United States. You kind of feel like there should be a couple more stepping stones in between there instead of just taking this guy who is just not prepared for this job. And what we've seen in the last 2 years has been terrible.
Well, look, both parties are in search of a friggin' hero. That's where we got Donald Trump, for God's sake. Yep. He's different. He's an outsider. He does not like the rest of them. Let's create this hero. They created a monster. Democrats and Republicans do it all the time, and this is the best example I can give you. This guy ain't no contender where it comes to national politics, I can tell you. Republican Representative George Santos is in major trouble for lying about all sorts of aspects of his life. Wow. Apparently the Republicans say this is okay. This guy's a nutcase. He is a Republican nutcase. He tells everybody, first of all, he's Jewish. He's not. The reason he said he's Jewish is because he's trying to raise money. And he does very suspiciously raise a lot of money, millions of dollars. Although when he came to run, the guy was a complete pauper. He was renting a place and he was months and months behind on his rent.
Yeah, and it just blows my mind that the Democrats in New York, because they had a dossier on this guy, and they had enough information, according to what they've said. Look, we thought most of this was a lie, but we decided to give him the benefit of the doubt on most of it. Christ. And instead, they ran a campaign trying to just tie him into the Capitol riot, instead of pointing out, listen, we don't know where his finances came from. Could be some shady deals there. He might be a wanted felon in Brazil, maybe.
He apparently is.
So he lied about his education, lied about who he worked for. This guy, it's easier to list the things he didn't lie about. And now we find out he may have even lied about his mom dying on 9/11. Yes. There's no end to this at all.
Yeah. Okay, so the Democrats have all of this, bits and pieces of this information are already out there. They know about it. But their political geniuses said, no, let's talk about January 6th because Democrats are talking about January 6th now. So let's tie into January 6th. This was like shooting fish in a barrel. He says his grandparents were in the Holocaust, were victims of the Holocaust because he's Jewish. He's not Jewish. There's nothing Jewish about this guy, but he's living in a Jewish community, and the Jewish community sends him tons of money because he starts pulling at their heartstrings. And the Democrats just whistling through the graveyard saying, yeah, let's do it. But how about the Republicans allowing him to be sworn in?
Yeah, that's even more disgusting, obviously, is because they know this guy is a complete and total fraud. Yeah. His entire past is fabricated. And they had the authority. They can say, as the majority, we're not going to seat you, and hey, if you don't resign, we will immediately vote to expel you. Yeah. They have that power. But they didn't do it because they have such a thin majority, 5 seats, that they need everybody they can get. Marjorie Taylor Greene baked cookies for this idiot a couple days ago. Weirdly enough, cookies shaped and decorated to look like her. So she delivers him cookies. She's been defending him because they're cut from the same cloth.
This is why I talk about tribalism all the time. I just do. I hate it. As I've always said, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I just want to call strikes and balls. So Republicans, rather than doing what's good sense, they let this happen. The Democrats do the same type of thing. But they had all they needed on this guy. Quick question. Where did the millions of dollars come from? Well, he goes from being a pauper to having millions of dollars. Where'd that come from?
Well, he says it's from his hugely successful business, but there's a lot of red flags there. And of course, that's what is now being investigated. In addition to, Brazil has reopened their investigation of him allegedly stealing a checkbook and buying hundreds of dollars in designer clothing. But so he's got some legal problems right there on the horizon.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but he looks like a Republican. The family of the recently arrested FTX founder is now under scrutiny for their roles in the business. I don't know that they get out of this without some real tough questions being asked. The parents in this case I mean, Joseph Bankman. Okay, Joseph Bankman is a nationally renowned tax expert who's a lawyer, teaches tax law at Stanford University. He was an employee of this business for 11 months. They're paying Daddy this money. Mommy, Barbara Freed, is taking the money and she's putting it into all of these Democrat, money raise organizations. What is Mind Gap?
Mind the Gap.
Mind the Gap was one of them, but there were many others. Yeah. So she's taking all this money, this is rolling in from everywhere. Everybody's saying, where the hell's this money coming from? Moreover, what is this business? We don't even understand the business. Everybody's asking questions about it. Even the Fed, as dysfunctional as they are, they have enough sense to say, what is this thing that's being done here? We don't even understand it. So Mommy and Daddy, I don't know how they just walk away from this. They've lawyered up, by the way.
Yeah, especially the dad in this case, because like you said, he was a paid employee. He was going down to the Bahamas at least once, oftentimes twice a month, down to the company's headquarters. He's the one who got his son all the lawyers that he needed. It was very difficult to convince me that he wasn't aware of at least some of what was going on. I mean, you're the tax guy, you're the legal guy, and all of this is happening under your nose that your own son is doing, and you have no idea. I find that hard to believe. So he needs good lawyers, obviously much better than what he is, because the entire family, even the brother, is linked to this. The brother's getting money, and he's using it for his pandemic, preparedness group.
Okay,
it's awful.
Here's what really, really bothers me about this. All the writing was on the wall. You remember the Liambo Wong fraud. It was a huge fraud, a Robert Brockman fraud. Now, the reason those frauds were ignored was because, and the Bernie Madoff fraud to some degree, also the same kind of analysis, because all of this money was moving into a political entity. So even though all of the red lights were going off, even though the White House was being told by their own staff, something's wrong with this guy, something's wrong with what's happening, but they're taking the money just like it's okay and allowing it to happen. The regulators weren't involved. Fortunately, you had one guy who had enough courage to say, whoa, 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 whoa. White House, you might put up with it. Feds, you might put up with it. I'm not going to put up with it. Goes after him.
Well, and he, Bankman-Fried, goes to Congress just a couple months ago, swears to them, hey, no, everything's great. We don't need to regulate the crypto industry. Just let us keep doing what we're doing. Of course, he's paying tons of money for lobbyists, giving tons of money to politicians. At the time, Democrats were in power, so that's where all that money's going. But he also, right before the election, I think when he saw, oh God, Republicans are going to get it, writes a big old check to Republicans because he's really not a party guy. He just says, who do I need to pay off?
Mommy, Daddy, who do I pay off? That's kind of what happens here. But okay, has the money been returned?
Not all of it.
I'm not seeing it.
There's far too many that are still sitting there on their FTX
all
money.
I can do is tell Mommy and Daddy, lawyer up if you haven't already, and apparently they already are. A group of 8 teenage girls have been arrested for murdering a homeless man in Canada, and authorities think social media may have played a major role in it. This story has come, this isn't the reason I think this is an important story right now is because finally we're seeing some of the results of an investigation that started after, do you remember the Slender Man murder?
Yeah.
Okay, you had what they call Slender Man murder. It was 11. Was she 11 years old?
I think so. Yes.
11-year-old girl on social media. She draws one of her friends into the forest and then stabs her 19 times, kills her, and so she comes out and says she told the story of the Slender Man. I've followed it on the net. This guy's a hero to me. I want to know what's up with it. And so she does this herself. So out of there comes a really important investigation. I mean, I think it's very important. The American Psychological Association takes a look at it and says, is this happening to our kids? Is this a big thing we need to pay attention to? Pick it up from there.
Yeah, and with this particular story here, more is still coming out about it because it's still very fresh. But the police chief up there in Toronto, I believe, says, listen, we're working on this, but right now signs are pointing to these girls met on social media. Right. They likely planned it on social media and then carried out. And some of these young girls were 13 years old. Yeah. They approached this homeless man, a gang of 8 of them, and just brutally murdered him.
Well, apparently one of them said they were doing this because they wanted exposure on social media. I mean, this was their chance to have, I guess 15 minutes of 15 seconds of fame there on the social media. But when this study came out, I mean, you can't help but read it and say, makes a lot of sense. It talks about the desensitization, talks about this whole desensitized reality for these people.
Yeah.
And this desensitized reality is something that they see time and time again on social media. I don't know. I think at some point that's the big problem that TikTok is going to have. Right now, you got congressional folks that are going to use this study. They're going to use the information coming out here and say, look, we don't like what you're doing, and we got to do something about it.
Well, and it is so terrifying to watch these children, because these are children.
Yeah.
And they're watching all of these horrible things online. Their friends are posting videos, and they get drawn into it. And they don't know any better. Like you said, it's this whole desensitizing aspect of it.
Well, that's the whole focus of these psychological profiles that they're finding about it. And so I think, to me, the story's important for a lot of reasons. I think one reason, from just a time element, kind of the temporal relationship of this story, is what's going on with TikTok right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to have a big impact when congressional hearings take place. A new batch of Twitter files have been released showing that the United States got permission from the platform to use it to spread propaganda. Okay. Now, first of all, these stories are coming out by an organization that both you and I really, really think is critically important. This is The Intercept.
Yep.
And you're dealing with reporters like Lee Fong, who is just, this guy ought to he ought to win Pulitzers left and right, but he doesn't because he's working with social media. So I look at this story, and it's not just government. We're talking about the spook industry. We're talking about the CIA, FBI, the Department of Defense using this vehicle for sheer propaganda. And now we know it. Before it was just, well, maybe they are. No, they are.
Right. What Lee Fong uncovered here in this new batch of Twitter files, which to me, the first batch is I don't really care.
I agree.
This is a big one.
Yep.
This is you should have led with this, because this is important.
I totally agree.
But what he found was these emails from the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, the CIA, saying, hey, Twitter, you seem to have throttled this account here, and they'd give them normal sounding names. And they said, listen, this is actually what we use to, spread lies about these other countries. Yeah. So we're going to need you to go ahead and whitelist all these accounts. And they would send a big old list.
Explain the whitelist thing. They got the blacklist and they got the white. What's the whitelist?
The whitelist means you can pretty much do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want, and Twitter is not going to, they're not going to throttle you, they're not going to shadow ban, and they're not going to ban you at all. They're going to let you do whatever it is you need to do, because according to the government, look, this is in our national interest. We need to convince the people in Iraq that Iran is about to attack them at any given moment. And that's one of the things.
It's crazy stories. Like it's CENTCOM. CENTCOM, explain CENTCOM to the viewers, please.
Yeah, that is the centralized command center, basically, of the entire, not just defense, but I guess intelligence apparatus in the United States.
It's the center of the spook industry.
It's the hub.
Yeah, it is the hub of the spook industry. And now, okay, first, on so many levels. First of all, we know now the CIA was directly involved with this, okay? We know that after the church hearings, it was made very clear the CIA should have they shouldn't touch domestic politics at all. Jack Dorsey obviously knew exactly what was going on. It had been going on for, 5 years?
Yeah.
I mean, there's
there's
a 5-year history that we know about just by what's showing up. But you see the problem here. I don't know how anybody listening to this story says, oh, it's okay. It's okay if government creates propaganda. It's the same thing, if you remember, that they went after the Russians about. The Russians are creating propaganda. Well, they spent $175,000 creating propaganda. Here, this is a limitless budget coming directly from the U.S. government that says, we want to tell a story the way we want to tell the story. We want to gin up interest in Syria. We want to make people mad about Ukraine. We want to make sure that Venezuela is something we talk about all the time. We want to create this centered message by way of your site, Jack Dorsey. And Jack Dorsey said, okay.
We also want to control the narrative about what's happening in Yemen too.
Good point.
And that's, Saudi Arabia going after Yemen.
Yeah.
So they wanted to completely whitewash everything that was happening there. And I cannot stress this enough. The government itself, and this goes back to, and I guess this is worth mentioning definitely, where we talked about years ago, in the military budget, suddenly it was uncovered, you're setting up a propaganda arm.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with this propaganda arm? Okay, well, now we know.
Hell, Obama blessed it. Obama said, yeah, we're going to have
it was last year, I
yeah,
think, when
last
they
year we're
created
going to create a propaganda arm where the U.S. government is going to create just not international propaganda, national propaganda.
Yeah.
Here's how they did it. They actually were willing to create computer-generated personalities. Okay, they would take Farron Cousins. They'd put another head on Farron Cousins. This is a new character, Farron Cousins. He's telling a story for Apex News Service. Apex News Service was computer generated. It wasn't even real. It was fake. Wasn't even out there. And then they'd create the fake story that the fake Farron Cousins would tell on the fake network. And people listen to this story and say, well, that's okay. That's okay because, well, it's making us safer. Really? I mean, come on.
No, this is absolutely meant to create more tension in the Middle East, to excuse the worst behavior of some of the people that we call our friends, but really are the biggest enemies we've got out there, attacking the countries that, we want people to think are the real enemies. It's disgusting.
Whitewashing Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Now, that's a big one. Let's whitewash this nutcase, this Prince nutcase, who, didn't they set a record last year for beheading people?
Yep.
We know, I think we always talk about this guy without talking about the fact that he is a bloodthirsty murderer.
Yes.
Khashoggi, that's one part of the story. If you look at this guy's history, it's awful. So what do? We use Jack Dorsey, we use his network to whitewash a guy like that. And the government is doing it by creating the story, creating these news services that don't even exist. And nobody even asked the question, I've never heard of Apex News Service. It sounds credible because it's been created by the government.
Well, and people have to understand there's actual human beings at the CIA, possibly at the FBI, in the Pentagon, that do this all day. They make up these fake articles. These are people, how do you go home? How do you tell your wife and kids, like, oh, I had a great day today. I convinced Iraq that Iran was putting meth in their water supply.
Yeah, that was a story, wasn't it?
It was. That was a real thing
they told
did.
the world that it was a big story in the U.S. Of course, the idiots on MSNBC, the idiots on Fox, the idiots on CNN pick up that story. They pick it up right off of social media and say, did you know that Iran is putting meth in the Iraqi drinking water? It's created by the government. And these morons that are running these news services don't even stop to ask, is this a real story? Yeah. How about the bombing in Poland?
Right, yeah, the AP guy who came out and said, Russia just sent missiles into Poland, they've killed a couple people, and then...
The story behind that was, this came from an anonymous service.
Yeah.
An anonymous source, an anonymous service created by the government. This is terrifying to me. I don't know why it is. A story that ties into it, there's this terrifying revolving door that's emerged between intelligence agencies and social media companies. Well, okay, so here again, you have reporters. They're not just talking. These aren't fake reporters. These are real people, real news services, Daily Mail. And they say, we've looked at this and we can name the number of CIA agents, FBI agents that have directly gone to work with Facebook, with Twitter, and with Google. And then they give us the names. Pick the story up. This is a remarkable story. Did you see this anywhere on national media?
No, that's what is so frustrating about this stuff too, because they found all these CIA agents, former CIA lawyer, Gina Haspel, one of them, Jim Baker, also one of them. Of course, everybody knows he was with Twitter until recently they realized, wait a minute, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, he was with the FBI, CIA, and then went, exactly.
But what has happened here, which we've talked about with the FDA, with the SEC, the revolving door. Right. You take the people from industry, you put them in regulation, take the regulators, you put them in the industry. That's what's happening with this intelligence community.
Yeah.
We're sending our good agents. You now work at Facebook for some reason.
But you see, the problem is management knows it. They're cooperating. They're cooperating because they're getting money from the government in various ways, just like Amazon. Okay, Amazon gets these huge government contracts. These other folks do too. So Jack Dorsey, I guess, was thinking, well, wow, if I let Aaron Berman in, or no, Aaron Berman went with Facebook. But this guy was, he was the service manager. He was the security service manager for Facebook. He's the guy who said, this is a story we're going to allow. This is a story we're not going to allow. We're going to throttle this one back. We're going to throttle forward on this one. He was with, he was a spook most of his life working for the CIA. Yeah. You have Deborah Berman. Well, she was a former intelligence analyst with the CIA. Notoriously secretive in what she did. But she was working on, her project with Facebook was to take misinformation and decide whether we should pull that misinformation or whether that misinformation is going to help us. So she decides, do we put it on, do we take it off? How many more people are there?
Oh, God, there's so many.
I mean, we don't have time to go through all.
You know, Chris Rose, who's political and counterterrorism analyst at the CIA, he went to Facebook. He joined them in March of 2020. Brian Weisbrand, CIA intelligence officer, he went with
LinkedIn. Yeah,
LinkedIn, yeah. Cameron Harris, he went to Facebook, but Scott Stern
but the
also
point is
went.
The point is this, we could go, this is a huge list.
Yeah, and we don't even have the whole list.
No,
There's
they
still so
came
many
from
more.
the spook industry,
Yeah.
and people like Jack Dorsey and Zuckerberg said, look, come to work with us. But it wasn't just, you see, there was something in it for them. Let's let this spook decide what we're going to put out there in the public. They're going to make the decisions. We're putting them in charge. But the rest of the story is when they did that, they benefited some way in all kinds of ways from the government. Just like take Amazon again. Go back to that story. What was it? $600 billion contract? Was it $600 billion?
A good portion of all the money they make actually comes from those government contracts. I think a majority of Amazon's profit, it's not from people buying toothpaste on their website. It's from these government contracts.
Yeah, so these freaks want to say, well, we're just looking out for the American public. No, they weren't.
No.
They were looking out for themselves. They were destroying everything we hold dear about the freedom of press in this country.
And you also have to wonder, too, what else did they get in return? Because a revolving door of this size, with this many people from this one area of the government going to these exact same companies, there's a bigger relationship there, and I hope that gets flushed out because they get access, just like we talk about with media outlets that hire the former CIA people. It's because they want the access. So why did these groups need the access? That's a question we still need answered. We also know that these are companies that are still largely unregulated.
Yeah.
Facebook alone facing tons of lawsuits for monopolistic behavior. They want to be in good with the government because they did it with Obama, they did it with Trump, they're doing it with Biden.
Oh, it goes all the way back to Bush.
So no matter who's there, we're going to be your friend. We're going to give you what you want. In return, you don't touch us.
Right. Leave us
We're
alone.
your guys.
Don't hit us for monopoly cases. Don't, say it's an antitrust case. Give us a break when you can. Even though Europe is killing us.
They are.
Europe is fining the hell out of us for doing all this illegal stuff. Don't do it in the U.S., and we're going to let your spook industry take control of this entity. That's exactly what's happened here. A leader at the Church of Scientology has disappeared after authorities tried to serve him with a child trafficking lawsuit. Farron, you and I have done plenty of stories on this cult of crazies. That's what it is. It's not a church. It's not a religious organization. It is a cult of maniacs. And nevertheless, we give them a tax break. They don't have to pay taxes. Now, this guy that's running the entire organization is on the run. He's hiding out because of this lawsuit that's been brought by a Florida lawyer down in South Florida. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we talked about the lawsuit really just a couple weeks ago. Yeah. You have these children, some as young as 5 and 6 years old. They get pulled into the church with their families, and I don't want to call it a church. The Scientologists put them to work
Cult.
Scrubbing boats, cleaning hotel rooms, doing all kinds of horrible things for no pay at all, basically using them as child labor. They'll take away any documents they have so that they cannot escape. They're trapping these people. It is human trafficking just through an organization that most people in this country somehow view as legit. It's disturbing.
I mean, okay, so it starts in California. No surprise there, it's the hub of crazy. So it starts in California, and then Florida, second hub of crazy. It builds its second big monstrosity of an organization in Florida. But as it's doing it, you understand what they're doing as they build is you brought into Scientology, you give me everything you've got. You may not have any contact with your family. If you have an inheritance, you give it to me. A lot of the money they make is from that. The second big bit of money is they don't pay taxes on anything. Yeah. Because for some reason, it's been determined that there's somehow a religion. It is a cult of crazy. What I think is interesting, L. Ron Hubbard, who started this whole thing, started on a pretty good premise, and that is the American and international psychology has become a dirt pit, that it doesn't work. It's, we've made it into something that it's not, that it shouldn't be. So he starts attacking the area of psychology, the discipline of psychology, and he builds his entire structure around that. L. Ron Hubbard was the guy. He ends up spending his life on a boat because he's running from the law all over the world, right?
Yeah.
Sea Org.
Well, and another part of it too is that, we talk about how we in the U.S. give them this tax-exempt status. Most countries in Europe don't even recognize it as a religion anymore.
Exactly.
They have stripped them of any status they may have had because they understand this isn't a religion. You're not even really praying to a deity of any kind. You don't really believe in anything.
L. Ron Hubbard is their deity.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to have a deity, it's L. Ron Hubbard, who, by the way, was always having to run because he had so many fraud cases against him.
Yeah.
He had criminal fraud cases against him that he had to live on a boat, and he started something called Sea Org. And this whole thing is where we are. I would think that that's where we're going to find David. Yeah. David is on the run right now because he understands that these charges are big.
David, who, by the way, actually served as the best man for one of Tom Cruise's weddings, I think his second wedding, maybe.
Okay, so it's a real easy solution, and here's what I hope happens. You can yank their tax exemption. You can get judgments against them. This is exactly what we're doing with Iran in the terrorist cases. They have a lot of holdings all over the world, a lot of them in the United States. So we get judgments against them for what took place with terror groups that have killed American citizens. So we get judgments against them. We sell their property. We get possession of their bank accounts. And so there's all these things that we're able to do if somebody would show enough courage and just pull the trigger on this. And it doesn't have to be a criminal event. If this civil case turns out to be what I think it is, this is serious stuff.
Yeah, and I think people should understand how serious it is. If it wasn't serious, this guy wouldn't be on the run right now trying to evade authorities. I mean, they went to his office and security refused to let them in to just serve the lawsuit.
Yeah. 37 times.
Yeah, 37 times. So he knows he's done for.
Yeah, let's hope they get him, but more importantly, let's hope they close this cult of crazies down, because that's all it is. It's just taking advantage of people all over the world right now. Thank you for joining me, okay?
Thank you.
That's all for this week, but all of these segments are going to be available this week right here on this channel, and you can follow us on Twitter at America's Lawyer. I'm Mike Papantonio, and this has been America's Lawyer, where every week we tell you the stories that corporate media won't tell you because their advertisers don't allow for it, or their political connections are just so strong, they're so tribal, that they won't allow for the story to be told. We'll see you next time.